Can a mono red shark compete at the table? I don't know. All I know is you're going to need a bigger boat. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Guys of Magic. It's me, it's Steven, and today I'm doing a deck tech on Jaws. I love Universes Beyond, and it makes me really happy when we see cool things like this. I am a big movie guy at heart, and Jaws was the first movie I ever watched as a kid, so to build a deck tech around it in a game that I love just brings my heart tons of joy. So I hope you guys enjoy it. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Jaws, Relentless Predator. This is 3 and 2 red for a legendary creature shark. It's a 5/5. It's got trample and haste, because sharks need trample and haste. It's a huge shark. But whenever Jaws deals combat damage to a player, create that many blood tokens. It also has a piece of text that says whenever a non-creature artifact is sacrificed or destroyed, Jaws deals 1 damage to each opponent. So this deck wants to be kind of artifacty to a certain extent. I built this as a treasure sub theme. Obviously the blood tokens are going to kind of come into effect as well. But yeah, mono red artifacts, something we've seen before, but can we play around with it a little bit deeper? If you've seen my deck techs before, you know I build things in groups as we go ahead and talk about them. So I'll go into the sub themes in different categories. But first off, let's talk about our creatures. Let's talk about the 3 big bads in this deck. So we have Academy Manufacturer, Ancient Copper Dragon, and Cavern Horde Dragon. Like I said, this is a pretty big deck when it comes to artifacts, but treasures always progress the board state, and I love treasure themed decks, so I kind of wanted to do that a little bit more in this one. So Academy Manufacturer, 3 mana for a 1/3. If you create a clue, food, or treasure token instead, create one of each. Obviously blood tokens are none of those, but we have a ton of treasure production in this deck, so we're just going to be making a bunch of artifacts that we can then have extra shenanigans with, and you'll see why I say that in a little while. Ancient Copper Dragon, banger of a card. God, I love this. 4 and 2 red, 6/5 flyer. Whenever Ancient Copper Dragon deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20. You create a number of treasure tokens equal to the result. So really fun here, unless you're me. I usually roll nat 1s, but here we are. Hopefully you roll that nat 20. Cavern Horde Dragon, 7 and 2 red. This is a 6/6. It costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest number of artifacts an opponent controls. It has flying, trample, and haste because keyword soup. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token for each artifact that player controls. We're playing Commander. Your opponents are going to have different artifacts, so obviously just kind of have fun with it. You're going to make a ton of treasures in this deck. It's going to be a great time. These next 3 creatures are kind of going into that treasure sub theme a little bit more. So we have Knuckles the Echidna. This is 2 and 2 red for 2/4. It's got double strike, trample, and haste. And then whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 30 or more artifacts, you win the game. This will probably come into effect in this deck. I will not lie to you, that last piece of text there. We are making a ton of artifacts in this deck, so to have 30 on the board, whether it's just a bunch of blood tokens or just treasures in general, you're doing a lot here. Goldspan Dragon, 3 and 2 red. If you're making treasure tokens, this is a must in pretty much any deck, in my opinion. It's a 4/4 with a flying and haste. And then whenever it attacks or becomes a target of a spell, create a treasure token. Treasures you control have tap, sack, add 2 mana of any color. Like I said, lots of treasures, so you might as well make some use and get that extra mana out of them. Let's try it up next. This is 4 and a red for a 4/3 with flying and myriad. So just swing in at the person that doesn't have any kind of blocker for this, and then you get to swing in 2 other copies at your other opponents. But yeah, whenever they deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Good times. I love treasures. These next 3 creatures kind of give us a little bit of help when it comes to these treasure tokens. So Professional Facebreaker, 2 and a red, 2/3 with menace. And then whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. And then you can sacrifice a treasure, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So a little bit of card advantage. Also a nice little sack outlet when it comes to these treasures. You'll see why that may be kind of an important thing later on. Generous Plunderer, 1 and a red for a 2/2 with menace. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may create a treasure token. When you do, target opponent creates a tapped treasure token. Now I know what you're thinking. Kind of not great to give your opponents treasure tokens. But at the end of the day, this does have a little other piece of text that says whenever it attacks, it deals damage to a defending player equal to the number of artifacts they control. So we're really just trying to do the beatdown strategy when it comes to Jaws. You'll see why I say that when we get to the artifacts a little bit later. But pain is gain. Give them what they want and then hurt them for it. And then we have Zorn in this deck, 2 in red for a 3/2. If you create 1 or more treasure tokens, instead create those tokens plus an additional treasure token. Just make more. I'm greedy. I want it all. All right, let's move on to these next few creatures. These creatures are going to be kind of like little sack outlets for us to kind of make sure that we can sacrifice artifacts and do some pinging damage later on. So we have a Tog. What a cool card. 1 and a red for a 1/2. Sacrifice an artifact. The Tog gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Really fun thing you can do with a Tog is just kind of swing at somebody. Don't pump it, but it's just a 1/2 and they might not be afraid, but you might have tons of treasures and blood tokens. You just sack those in response to no blocks, and then next thing you know, you're swinging for lethal. Because getting +2/+2 for each of those artifacts you're sacking is pretty aggressive. Next up, we have Audacious Reshapers with also an Audacious text box. This is 2 and a red for a 3/3. It says tap, sack an artifact, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an artifact card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. Audacious Reshapers, it deals damage equal to the number of cards revealed this way. It's kind of like a fun little Chaos Warpy effect for your board, and obviously we're making all these extra little tokens that don't really matter for our deck sometimes, so why not make some use out of it? There's tons of artifacts in this deck that you'll just be able to get for free, and just being able to deal some excess damage for that is fantastic. Extruder is up next. This is 4 mana for a 4/3. It has Echo 4, so unfortunately you will have to pay an extra 4 at the beginning of your next upkeep. But it also says sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Obviously Jaws has trample, it has haste, so we cast this after Jaws hits the field, and then boom. We have a pretty big creature that we're going to be able to swing with, and obviously commander damage is very real. Let's just knock somebody out. Continuing on with the sacrifice and artifact sub-theme, we have Goblin Engineer and Goblin Welder. These two kind of go hand in hand in my opinion. So Goblin Engineer is 1 and a red for a 1/2. Whenever it enters the battlefield, search your library for an artifact card, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. Why are you putting it in your graveyard? That kind of sucks. Well, let's listen to the next part. Pay a red, tap it, sacrifice an artifact. Return target artifact card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. There's a ton of little artifacts that we're going to be talking about a little later that you're going to want to basically get out for free if you can. Goblin Welder is 1 red for a 1/1. You tap it and it says choose target artifact a player controls and target artifact card in that player's graveyard. If both targets are still legal and this ability resolves, that player simultaneously sacrifices the artifact and returns the artifact card to the battlefield. You might be able to do this with somebody else's, but obviously we're trying to do this with our graveyard. Somebody might destroy our artifacts, but we want to bring them back. So Goblin Welder really good in this deck. We also have Krark Clan Engineers. This is 3 and a red for a 2/2. You can pay a red, sacrifice 2 artifacts, destroy target artifact. There is a little bit of, artifact destruction in this deck, whether it's ours or our opponents. Never really hurts. Doesn't hurt to take out somebody's soul ring. We should be the only people with soul rings. We also have Slowbad Goblin Tinkerer. This is 1 and a red for a 1/2. Sacrifice an artifact. Target artifact gains indestructible until end of turn. So vice versa. Don't target my soul ring. Don't try and destroy it. I'm going to give it indestructible. All right, so some more creatures now. We're going to get on to the fun things to do with these sacking artifacts. So basically this deck revolves around pinging people to death. So here we have Hedron Detonator. This is 2 and a red for a 2/3. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to target opponent. You can also tap it, sacrifice 2 artifacts, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. I love it. Super simple, super easy. It does what we want it to do, plus it has some card advantage on it, which is fantastic. We also have Ingenious Artillerist. This is 2 and a red for a 3/1. Whenever 1 or more artifacts enter the battlefield under your control, Ingenious Artillerist deals that much damage to each opponent. Just hurt people. Great. Pain Distributor is also here, 2 and a red for a 2/3. It has Menace, and then whenever a player casts their first spell each turn, they create a treasure token. And then whenever an artifact an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, Pain Distributor deals 1 damage to that player. I know what you're thinking, Pain Distributor in this deck. Obviously, we're trying to be the ones sacking and dealing the damage, but our opponents can't resist the temptation of sacking treasures for things. So this will be dealing damage whether we think it will or not. And what is a artifact deck if you don't have Reckless Fireweaver in there? 1 and a red for a 1/3. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, Reckless Fireweaver deals 1 damage to each opponent. We're making a lot. It's going to deal a lot. Moving on to Sardian Avenger. This is 1 and a red for a 1/1. It's got first strike and trample. And then whenever it attacks, it gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of artifacts your opponents control. Whenever an artifact an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, Sardian Avenger deals 1 damage to that player. Again, we do have a little bit of a, artifact destruction sub-theme in here, so this is going to be really good, especially if we can just swing in with some massive damage. And one of my new favorite cards that come in from Edge of Eternity's Wef Stalker Ardent. This is 2 and a red For a 2/3, it says whenever another creature or artifact you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. Fantastic card. It also has a warp cost of 1 red. So essentially you can warp this in for 1, do the thing, make a bunch of artifacts, deal a bunch of damage, and then just do it again the next turn. And this just goes into its own little warp zone, and then you can play it again later. All right, these next 3 creatures are for the people in the comments that are saying right now, well, Steven, 1 damage isn't enough. I'm not trying to run a deck that wins by, death by 1,000 cuts. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into these. So we have Sulfim Mayhem Dominus. This is 2 and 2 red. It's a 5/4, and it says if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. You can also pay 1 and 2 Phyrexian red, discard 2 cards, put an indestructible counter on it. So just let's go ahead and make sure we can continuously do this, make it indestructible. 2 cards, not that big of a deal, right? I think. Osier Axonal Deepest Might is also here for 2 and 2 red. It's a 4/4 trampler. It says if a red source you control would deal an amount of non-combat damage less than Osier Axonal's power to an opponent, that source deals damage equal to Osier Axonal's power instead. Then when it dies, it returns to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. The land side is also really good. I won't get into that too much because really the first part's kind of what we care about the most. We also have Chandra's Incinerator. This is 5 and a red, which is probably the highest CMC cost in this deck. I usually build my decks a little lower to the ground. It's a 6/6, but the spell does cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of total non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn. It has trample. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. So really good. Start pinging down the board. Make sure that you're the only one that has stuff around. It's fantastic. These last 2 creatures are just like nice little value pieces. Neheb the Eternal, 3 and 2 red for a 4/6. It has a flick 3, so whenever this creature becomes blocked, defending player loses 3 life. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, add red mana for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. It is not too far and few in between to deal a bunch of damage by sacrificing artifacts in this deck and making a ton of red mana. This deck might get a little costly when it comes to the stuff you're wanting to do, so Neheb will help us out with that. And then we have Crime Novelist. I literally just opened a pack today and pulled this. I went to Target, grabbed one. But yeah, so 2 and a red for a 1/3. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Crime Novelist and add a red. So obviously we're trying to sacrifice a bunch of artifacts, and a lot of creatures that we have in this deck do that for free. So just make a ton of mana by sacking blood tokens. And then, draw a discard, draw a discard. You can build this deck a whole bunch of ways, and Crime Novelist is here to help you out. Yeah, let's move on to the artifacts now. This is an artifact sub-theme deck, but let's go ahead and talk about our ramp pieces. So we have Arcane Signet coming in at 2 mana, tap, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Shocker, we're mono red, so it'll be red. Soul Ring, can't not throw Soul Ring in a deck. I think I love it. People that don't, tell me why. We also have Ruby Medallion. We're in a mono red deck. 2 mana, red spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, so it's going to help us out with some cost reduction. And then we also have Mind Stone. This is 2 mana, although it does tap for a colorless mana. We can also pay 1, tap it, sack it, and draw a card. So if we're in the end game, we don't really need that colorless mana anymore. We can kind of help draw a card, maybe find an answer to something that we need. These next 4 artifacts we'll talk about are going to help us out with some more mana production and a little bit of card draw too. Reaver Cleaver is up first. This is 2 and a red for a artifact. It says equipped creature gets +1/+1 and it has trample. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, create that many treasure tokens. So obviously Jaws already has trample, but some of our creatures can get really big if Jaws isn't around, and we can always make a bunch of treasures with that. So let's go ahead and just automatically throw Reaver Cleaver on something, just have a good time. Radiant Lotus, 6 mana for this artifact, quite hefty on the mana cost, but it does some pretty fun stuff. You can tap it and sacrifice 1 or more artifacts, choose a color, target player adds 3 mana of the chosen color for each artifact sacrificed this way. Our artifacts are going to produce so much mana with this card out on the field. Even though it's 6 mana to cast this, you can easily make that back just by sacking all the stuff you've made this game. Great include for this deck. We also have Ichor Wellspring. It is 2 mana, and it says whenever it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. So obviously we can just sacrifice this artifact with one of our free sack outlets and essentially just draw 2 cards. It's going to be a good time here. And then Idol of Oblivion for 2 mana. We're making a ton of tokens, so this is an automatic include as well. So you can tap it, draw a card, activate only if you created a token this turn, and then you can pay 8 mana, tap it, sacrifice it, create a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. If you're in the late game and you don't want to draw cards, I guess you can always make a 10/10. But let's be honest, we want to draw cards. All right, moving on to the fun artifact equipments. This is going to be a good time, I think, for us, probably not for our opponents. Let's move on to Brotherhood Regalia. This is 2 mana. Equipped creature has Ward 2, is an assassin in addition to its other types, and can't be blocked. Equipped a legendary creature for 1 or equipped for 3. We don't want Jaws to be blocked. We want to make as many of these tokens as possible, so this is definitely going to help us out. Plus, it's kind of funny to think of an assassin shark. Commander's Plate coming down at 1 mana. It says equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity. Shocker, we are a monocolor deck, so having protection from 4 other colors is pretty good. You can equip your commander for 3 or equip 5 normally. And then we also have Genji Glove for 5 mana. Equipped creature has double strike, and whenever equipped creature attacks, if it's the first combat phase of the turn, untap it. After this phase is additional combat phase. You can kind of go Voltron-y with this deck and the artifacts we've put in, and it gets pretty aggressive. So just, maybe your friends might not, invite you back. I don't know. Can't blame me. These next 3 artifacts are great. So Nettle Cyst, 3 mana for a living weapon. When it enters the battlefield, you're creating a 0/0 black Phyrexian germ creature, and then you attach this to it. But it says equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. It also has an equip cost of 2. Jaws has trample. I know I've said it before, and you're making a ton of artifacts in this deck. So it's just kind of like just swing in for commander damage. Obviously, yes. Hammer of Nizan coming in at 4 mana. It says whenever it or another artifact enters, you may attach that equipment to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has indestructible. An indestructible shark sounds fantastic. And then lastly, we have Silver Shroud Costume. This comes in at 2 mana. It has flash, and then whenever it enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. That creature gains Shroud until end of turn. And it also says equipped creature can't be blocked. Equipped cost of 3. I love it. Flash, 2 mana. Just don't target my stuff. Fantastic. Also, can't be blocked. Even better. We have 3 more artifacts to talk about. One is going to be kind of helping us out with basically just making Jaws bigger. Tarian Soul Cleaver is here for 1 mana. Equipped creature has Vigilance. And then whenever another artifact or creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature. This has an equipped cost of 2. This is really good because this does not say artifacts you control. This is just any artifacts. So those treasures we were giving our opponents before, if Tarian's out, we're just going to make it huge. And Jaws will be unstoppable. And then obviously we are kind of trying to do a bunch of stuff on our turns. So Clan Ironworks is here for 4 mana. You can sacrifice an artifact, add 2 colorless. So essentially just sacrifice all the stuff we've made and ping people down. Sack outlets work really well with this deck. And lastly, we do want Jaws to be protected. So Swiftfoot Boots is an auto include. 2 mana. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste, and then also you can equip it for 1. It's not Lightning Greaves, but sometimes Shroud gets a little tricky when you're trying to do things, so you don't really want to do that. Swiftfoot Boots is here for the win. All right, those were all the artifacts. Let's move on to the sorcery departments. Funny enough, the instants and the sorceries, they have 6 each, so we'll just go 3 by 3 here. Reckless Endeavor obviously is one of the secret layer cards, so I had to keep it in here. So 5 and 2 red. Roll 2d12 and choose 1 result. Reckless Endeavor deals damage equal to that result to each creature. Then create a number of treasure tokens equal to the other result. So really cool card. You're either making some treasure tokens or you're really dealing some damage to creatures. This will deal damage to all creatures, so just be careful. You might not want to wipe your board, so maybe take the lower result, or just be careful when you cast this. Seize the Spotlight, an amazing card, 2 and a red. Each opponent chooses Fame or Fortune. For each player who chose Fame, gain control of a creature that player controls until the end of turn. Untap those creatures and they gain haste until end of turn. For each player who chose Fortune, you may draw a card and create a treasure token. You can kind of be mean with this deck, throw in like a Liquid Metal Torque, make those creatures artifacts once you gain control of them, and then, sacrifice them. I didn't try to go too mean with this deck, but Seize the Spotlight, great card for this deck. Sundering Eruption, 2 in a red, destroy target land. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Creatures without flying can't block this turn. So just some nice evasion for Jaws as well, but also this is a MDFC, so if you need to have mana instead, you can go ahead and play this on the land side. But a little bit of land destruction if your opponents have a land that's really bugging you, just get rid of it. It's gone. And like I mentioned earlier, this deck does have a little bit of an artifact destruction sub-theme, so Echoing Ruin coming in at 1 in a red. Destroy target artifact and all other artifacts with the same name as that artifact. So you can choose Blood Token if you have a bunch, and you can really do some massive damage on the board if you have one of those pinging effects. Or if your opponents have a bunch of treasures and you don't want them to have them, they're gone. Meltdown is here as well. This is X in a red. Destroy each artifact with mana value X or less. You can literally just pay red and 0 into the X and just get rid of all the tokens. So this just what a good card. And then Vandal Blast as well, classic, can't go wrong. 1 red, destroy target artifact you don't control. You can also overload it for 4 in a red. I feel like Vandal Blast is one of those cards where you just always overload it. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Let's move on to the instant cards now. So a little bit of card draw here. So we have Unexpected Windfall for 2 and 2 red. As an additional cost to cast the spell, discard a card. Draw 2 cards, create 2 treasures. Obviously, we want to try and make some artifacts, so that will help us out there. Demand Answers is also here for 1 in a red. As additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice an artifact or discard a card, draw 2 cards. 2 mana, sack a blood token to draw 2 cards. Yeah, easy include, automatic. Valakut Awakening, 2 in a red, put any number of cards from your hand onto the bottom of your library, then draw that many cards plus 1. Just really trying to help us filter through our hand if it's not really working out for us. Also, if you're in a pinch and you need the mana, just play it on the land side. Last 3 instants we have in this deck, one that is part of the secret layer. You're going to need a bigger boat, aka a braid. This is 1 in a red. Choose one. You're going to need a bigger boat, deals 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. I love the fact that that is now a piece of text in Magic. You're going to need a bigger boat for sure. Untimely Malfunction is also here, 1 in a red. Choose one, destroy target artifact, change the target of target spell or ability with a single target. 1 or 2 target creatures can't block this turn. Fantastic card, kind of like a Deflecting Swat for 2 mana that you can't cast for free technically, but still really good. And then also our commander coming down on turn 3 sounds pretty good as well. So Seething Song, 2 in a red, add 5 red mana to your mana pool. Super simple, easy, to the point. If this is on our opening hand with 3 other lands, I'm probably going to keep, I will not lie. But that will do it for the instants and the sorceries. We'll move on to the enchantments. These first 3, 2 of them from the secret layer, super fun. Panic on Amity Island, also known as Descent into Avernus. Big D&D fan, so I love the fact that this is here. This is 2 in a red. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 descent counters on this enchantment. Then each player creates X treasure tokens, and this enchantment deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of descent counters on this enchantment. This will speed up the game so much. Be very careful, but this is such a fun, chaotic card, and I love it with all my heart. Moving on to a card that I love, and I'm glad I got a reprint, but I'm not happy that it's in the secret layer. Sneak Attack, 3 in a red. You can pay 1 red. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Sacrifice the creature at the beginning of the next end step. I love it, and I understand thematically why it's in the secret layer, but the way you kind of want to build Jaws isn't by throwing a bunch of like big creatures, and it kind of makes me sad because I really wanted to throw in like all these cheaty cards that you can just like really hurt people with, but there's not too many in this deck. But Sneak Attack, still really good. Rain of Riches, we're doing treasures, so have to throw this in here. This is 3 and 2 red. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you create 2 treasure tokens. It also says the first spell you cast each turn that mana from a treasure was spent to cast has Cascade. So just really wheel and deal, baby. We're making so many treasures, we might as well get a little bit of extra value out of it. These next 3 enchantments are really fun. So Gear per Aether Grid, this is 2 in a red. Tap 2 untapped artifacts you control. Gear per Aether Grid deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So if we just have a ton of artifacts on board, just start pinging, baby. We also have Guild Artist, and this is 1 in a red. Commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, you create 2 treasure tokens. Just, yeah, I mean, that's pretty simple, to the point. We also have, I'm going to butcher this name, but Latula's Orders. This is 1 in a red. You may play Latula's Orders anytime you can play an instant. So basically flash here. Whenever enchanted creature deals combat damage to defending player, you may have it destroy target artifact that player controls. I love this because Jaws with trample and haste, and you throw this on there and then you're just starting to mow down the artifacts of your opponents. Just brings me joy. Moving on to a fun Duskmourn enchantment. This is a room, so we have Spiked Corridor or Torture Pit. The first room here, Spiked Corridor, fun I guess, but you know, we're really here for the Torture Pit, but I'll read off both. So Spiked Corridor, whenever you unlock this door, create 3 1/1 red devil creature tokens with whenever this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. But the Torture Pit, if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage plus 2 instead. So really just trying to help ping down the table a little bit faster. And the last enchantment is Spiteful Banditry. I love this card with all my heart. This is X and 2 red. And then whenever it enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to each creature. And then whenever 1 or more creatures your opponents control die, you create a treasure token. This ability triggers only once each turn. So just kind of make treasures for your opponents playing the game and destroying stuff. That's pretty fun. You can either use this as a board wipe, or you can literally just cast this for 2 mana, deal no damage, and just kind of start to make treasures from there. Those were all the enchantments. We're going to move on to the lands now. This is a mono red deck, so we're not going to see anything too crazy. But these first 3 we'll talk about are going to be Arena of Glory. Arena of Glory enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain. You can tap it, add a red, or you can pay a red, tap it, exert it, and then Arena of Glory adds 2 red. If that mana is spent to cast a creature spell, it gains haste until end of turn. So essentially just really trying to get creatures that we kind of want to do certain things out with haste, whether it's Goblin Welder or Goblin Engineer, to try and make sure that we're rummaging through our graveyard or deck to get the important artifact pieces we need. Command Beacon, Jaws is probably going to be taken out quite a bit, so you kind of want this card in your deck. This is going to tap for a colorless, but you can also tap it, sack it, put your commander into your hand from the command zone. So get out of that command zone tax just 1 time. We also have Minds of Moria. This will enter the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature. There's a couple in the deck, so I think we might be fine. But it taps for a red, or you can pay 3 in a red, tap it, exile 3 cards from your graveyard, create 2 treasure tokens. Pretty fun here. We might need some of the pieces in our graveyard, so just be careful what you're getting rid of. But obviously we're just trying to recur artifacts, so just get rid of all the stuff that you don't care. You know, it's easy. And I know what you're thinking. These next 3 are also colorless lands, which is, you know, why are you doing that, Steven? But Rogue's Passage, pretty good card. Tap it for a colorless, or you can pay 4, tap it, target creature can't be blocked this turn. Unblockable is the name of the game sometimes, and trying to get in for that extra bit of damage, pretty helpful. Scavenger Grounds, always a good card to add to decks. Riley kind of put me on this card, and I've been throwing it into a lot of the decks that I run now. You can tap it to add a colorless, or you can pay 2, tap it, sack it, exile all graveyards. Super fun. I say sack it. You can just technically sacrifice a desert and continue doing this effect, but this is the only desert in the deck, so it doesn't really matter. We also have War Room, which is a great card in a monocolor deck. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can pay 3, tap it, pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity, and draw a card. So it kind of helps out in the late game. If we don't have any cards in hand, we can just kind of bulk back up. And lastly, we have 29 mountains. Fantastic. Yeah, monocolor. Can't really go wrong. If you got the extra budget, 1 land that I really wanted to add was Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. I think that's a fantastic one, but just a little out of the budget for what we normally like to do. We like to stay in the $300 to $400 range for our deck techs. But yeah, that's my deck tech. I hope you enjoyed it. This one ran about 370, not including the secret layer. So definitely just kind of like see what you want to do. I built it more artifacty when it came to treasures. You can build this a whole bunch of different ways, but that's just kind of how I imagined it when I first saw the card. Let me know down below, how did I do in the comments? You know, hit me with your best shot or your worst shot. Is there a card that I definitely forgot about? Are there cards in the deck that you don't really agree with? Let me know. I take criticism very well. I love reading all the comments. I'm here for it. Also in the description, you'll see the link to the Mox Field. If you want to do a little bit of gold fishing, you can do some play testing on there. Always a fun way to see if a deck's going to be right for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video so you stay up to date. We have a couple other deck techs planned in the works. But yeah, super exciting. Appreciate you guys watching. You can also catch all of our other content on our other social media links. It is at Guys That Magic for everything. You can catch all that in the description down below as well. And on the screen right now are all of our beautiful patrons. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. We greatly appreciate everything. But a special shout out to our indestructible tier.
Aaron Hill, Billy Yum Yum 2x2, Daryl Tripp, Demarion Turner, Dr. Rome, Dolo XMJ, Ghost McGrady, Jimmy Ward, Jay Pizzle, Kelvor, Kevo, Samuel Abbott, Stingraiser 1144, and Thrifty PSGR.
Love you. Miss you.